Today on Discover Wisconsin, we're heading to historic CampFive, where you'll discover Wisconsin's rich logging history. See a blacksmith at work, learn what tools lumberjacks used, and experience a ride on the Lumberjack Special. So sit back and relax because your adventure begins right now on Discover Wisconsin.
Around each bend, the enchantment never ends. For every season there's another reason for you to come discover Wisconsin.
CampFive is located in Leona in northeast Wisconsin. It's a short drive north of Green Bay on Highways 32 and 8, nestled in the Nicolet National Forest. You'll enjoy incredible scenery as you make your way to this historic destination. Hi everyone, welcome to Discover Wisconsin. I'm Stephanie Klett. Today we are exploring CampFive in Leona. CampFive is filled with Wisconsin's rich logging history, both past and present. But it's much more than just a logging museum. It's also a place to learn about Wisconsin's natural beauty. Let's begin our tour of CampFive by going back to the days of the mighty lumberjack. Wisconsin's logging industry started in earnest in the late 1860s. Men of all nationalities made their way to Wisconsin's North Woods to work for area logging companies. Many of the loggers farmed in the summer and logged during the winter. Every man had a job to do when he arrived at the logging camp. Whether they were felling trees, trimming branches, or hauling logs, they all worked a grueling day.
Well, logging primarily took place in the wintertime. It was easier to see the trees in the winter because there were no leaves on the trees. You could get into the woods easier.
Plus, there were no bugs to annoy the loggers, no tree sap to dull their saws, and sleighs could glide easily over the snow.
Wintertime was really the time. It was easy sledding then, and our winters in northern Wisconsin were pretty long.
Pine trees were the trees of choice because they were light and could easily float downstream to the sawmills. After the trees were cut, horses and oxen hauled the logs on sleighs to the riverbanks where they sat until spring. When the winter freeze was over, the logs were dumped into the rivers. Jam crews stayed in front of the logs, guiding them through the winding rivers, whereas a rear crew followed behind to collect any logs that became entangled in the river. Because of the enormous amount of timber floating to the mills, log jams were common during this time of year. Some could reach heights of more than 10 feet high and 100 feet wide. It took skilled men to break these massive and dangerous log piles free. Railroads revolutionized the logging industry. They allowed logging companies to move deeper into the forest to harvest hardwoods. This expansion created more inland area logging camps. Trains would arrive at the camps with men and supplies and then leave with logs headed for the sawmills.
Every logging company had a railroad, and it would connect with one of the major railroads that was in the state at the time. Wisconsin Central Railroad was here. I think the Chicago Northwestern, which is an old one, the Minneapolis-St. Paul, the Sioux Line. But if you look at an old map of Wisconsin, there are hundreds of railroads that were here, and they were all built by logging companies.
As lumber companies cleared a forest, they moved to new locations. The railmen laid 1 mile of track each month to begin cutting in these new areas. Logging companies named their camps in a numbered sequence. As you can guess, CampFive got its name because it was the 5th camp for Connor Lumber and Land Company. After the timber around CampFive was cleared, lumberman W.D. Connor transformed the land into a farm in 1914.
The logging camp was converted to a farm because the farm had to provide the food for the lumber camps. And the company generally had 2 lumber camps, 2 to 3 lumber camps going each year. Of course, there were anywhere from 100 to 200 men in each camp, so this meant you had to provide a lot of food.
These lumbermen were responsible for building cities and towns around the country. Wood was such a valuable resource for Wisconsin that Woodrow Wilson sent in the 3rd Regiment of the Wisconsin National Guard to protect the logging camps from the Germans during World War I. These men were called the Doughboys. This drastic measure proves the importance of Wisconsin's timber industry, an industry that is currently preserved at CampFive, a place that honors the hard work and dedication of the early pioneers of the logging industry. To learn more about CampFive, log on to our website at discoverwisconsin.com or call 1-800-236-WISC. Coming up, we're going to hop on board the Lumberjack Special to CampFive, learn about the tools lumberjacks used, and see what's happening in the blacksmith shop. It's all coming up next when Discover Wisconsin returns.